Exterior, valley floor opening, day. Aggie breaks through a thick wall of scrub and into a clearing with a large tua tree in its centre, barely visible in the dying light. At its base there is an opening. Nels runs inside it. Aggie hesitantly looks around and then up at the sky before joining him inside. It's dark. Too dark to see much at all. Nels cuddles up with Aggie, barely visible from the light of the opening. In the distance, the sound of animal whimpers. Nels nuzzles into Aggie as he shuffles them both back, away from the light and into the dark of the tree's hollow. Aggie, lying down, his eyes heavy, slipping into sleep. Montage. Aggie dream sequence. The forest. Voices, but this time louder and more distinct. He assumes the perspective of a life force moving through the mycelial network. Flashes of a cloaked figure. The mother tree burning. A baby crying. A woman screaming. The perspective of a life force as it races up a tree and explodes into what looks like 1,000,000 particles of light. He is but one particle of light. A view from the heavens at scorched earth. A voice.
Tua ummi.
Aggie is woken from his dream only long enough to be knocked unconscious by a darkened figure standing over him. Exterior, forest opening outside Tua Hollow. Day. Aggie wakes, blurred vision. He hangs from a spider web-like rigging of vines. He hears a lone voice speaking BU-RA. Subtitled, from below and behind him as he tries to turn his head to see.
I give me a mangi og. You me only just met.
He laughs hysterically. Aggie rides again enough to catch sight of a large hairy mass before it and slips from view, muttering.
Oi mokiem. Siliog. SIMSI oi mok nai. Meet him.
Hey, you leave him alone.
Silence. Then the sound of something climbing and scratching up the tree, ever closer to Aggie's position. Aggie's hair stand to nervous attention. A large, rough, nailed hand appears in his periphery, wrapped around the trunk before disappearing. He hears heavy rustling around him again before silence. Suddenly, a huge figure, rough and covered in wiry matted hair, hangs in front of him in full view.
Shh.
Aggie in awe.
Garon.
Shh. Nai mangi o kentok.
The beastly figure disappears quickly and then appears again, hanging upside down and closer still.
What is Garun?
You are Garun, but a BU-RA like me. Please let me free.
The beast looks at him quizzically.
Shh. Not Garun. Toya umi SIMSI.
The figure again disappears and with growing aggression responds.
Meeting mochichuri. Bora oiken goi nai koesta. Dis la BU-RAA-NAI. Dis la BU-RA-MORION. Mama na papa yakim ruhi miat tua yumi. Tua mahan yumi. Miaki mahan lo nai. SIMSI go. Now nai come.
Baru umi. Go yakim holding uyu. Mi yakim mi emme. Mi no nai. Toya umi agilo duara.
The Garun appears again, this time in a rage.
Papa na mama muri. Naikin uyu turok.
Aggie, restrained, is staring into the eyes of the Garun, unable to move.
Mama na papa umi nyok. Mi kesru miyana.
SIMSI's face softens slightly.
You nai. You oiken nai. You ayoken nai. Dis la ukarushin yau you.
SIMSI gestures towards the gap in the tree where the sun is soon to peak. He sits on a branch for an awkward moment, looking between the horizon, Aggie hanging, nails on the ground. The sun soon appears and hits Aggie in the face as he squints. SIMSI opens his eyes wide now at the moment of truth. Aggie is not his enemy. His demeanour turns to jovial in an instant.
E moyo chichuri. Octal truth.
SIMSI slams a blade into a vine which unravels them enough for Aggie to fall to the ground.
You yakim baru. You yakim. Ay baru umi. Mi oi baru umi. Mi like him.
Exterior, open plains, day. Lines of beast and BU-RA march across the expanse towards the foot of the mountains, on top of which the MINJIERRI camp had stood. The lines slow as they enter aisles between grass and earth-covered geometry. PUALI stops and stares into an opening of an earthen wall. BU-RA pass him and disperse into a crater. PUALI reaches at the walls and in his hand the black club crumples to sawdust. The crater, the shell of a tua tree. PUALI looks at GIERMO-ULAK, gesturing upward to the mountaintop. GIERMO-ULAK kneels and places his palms on the ground, and the mycelium web wraps his wrists.
Mopso.
PUALI rubs the sawdust on his face and neck before cupping his hands and blowing the remaining into the wind.
BU-RAA-NAI, eh?
They march on. Exterior. Outside SIMSI's tour, dawn. Despite his wildness, SIMSI had his entire area meticulously manicured, now more visible with the rising sun. Constantly, he moves to clean up his space as AGGY observes with curiosity.
You speak Gold tongue?
Yes, yes, Mama teach me good.
SIMSI, I have to get home. Duara is...
AGGY looks up towards the sun, performs a quick calculation and then points into the distance. SIMSI considers and then points back towards where AGGY had come from.
No, this is the way I came. The ground shake took the only path. There must be another.
Only bad place. We don't go to bad place. Papa say, not tua, you die. Plenty of chichure. Maybe eat you. This la tua...
SIMSI gestures towards his family's tour.
Implant. This la mama na papa's tua. Uit tua umi. Mahan here. We can pull him.
SIMSI walks up next to AGGY and they both stare down at his tour laying on the ground. It is cumbersome and unpleasant to look at. SIMSI looks confused.
This la tua?
Promise.
SIMSI thinks for a moment, a quizzical look.
You yakim. This la duara. Bura Mary?
Exterior. Unknown forest location. Day. AGGY, SIMSI and Nels are moving at a strong pace. SIMSI speaks in manic excitement.
Rockman. This la uyaga manamu. Me meet Rockman. He got plenty story. He took all lives in him. Came from place past lights in sky. You know this one?
The Ogren tell many stories to their little ones. Of the rock people, of those that live above the clouds, and of the time before the dark when all living in Gyris walked free.
Mama na papa yakim plenty sto.
SIMSI grabs at AGGY to halt him as they reach an ominous threshold. Ahead, the forest thick and dark, trees gnarled with branches growing together and blocking out the sun except for the infrequent rays that pierce holes in the canopy.
Kayamo niyo kinga.
SIMSI drops to his knees and starts to rub the dirt from the light side of the threshold into his skin. AGGY follows. Nels begins to roll himself in the dirt as well. SIMSI grabs one end of the tour and places it up on a shoulder before pulling a club from its sheath on his back to wield with the other hand. AGGY picks up the other side.
Fast as we can. Stay in the light of the sun.
Exterior. Former MINJIERRI camp. Day. The BURA and animal armies summit the ridge to find only Varun sitting in wait on a rock, holding parchment. He remains nonchalant as waves of the troops appear over the rise and surround him. A Muagi that has managed to fashion disordered attire from the outfits of fallen enemies approaches Varun with a MINJIERRI dagger that appears as big as a sword. Varun unflinching.
So you're the boss?
Djalu whistles and the Muagi runs up his body and perches on his shoulder.
I take it you come with a message and not as a lone crusader.
Varun offers the scroll to Djalu.
These are the words of Saras, but I don't know you, any of you. But I will tell you this, whether we succeed against ALAVARD or not, your only available choice is to accept this treaty in the hope that we do.
The BURA walk from the back of the crowd and one by one position themselves around Varun. Last to appear are Philae and PUALI.
Ah, as with my own kind, the lady ones are far better looking.
Varun flashes a flirtatious smile.
Such confidence, there's such a small head.
We could crack it open and see how it works.
Well, you would do a great job of confirming the opinions of many as being without honour, rather than what Saras claims you to be. What do you know of ALAVARD?
Fat, greedy prick, loved by few and hated by many.
One in a long line of plunderers.
When he was a young boy, he started collecting bones to build his throne. He wanted to be king long before his father was ready to give it. He may be all those things you say, but he is ruthless and has many under his command. You signed this treaty, and if Saras takes command, I can assure you we will hold up its terms. If she does not, there is not a chance in all of Gyris that your OGGs and rats with blades can stop the slaughter of every last soul here. ALAVARD'S forces are vast with armour of steel, but beyond all of that, he is willing to send his own people to die in droves just to suffocate you into submission.
Varun looks into the eyes of Djalu.
Your choice is really only whether you are to be like your enemy.
At PUALI,
A leader must choose.
Varun stands and walks to the edge of the crowd where he is blocked. He looks back at PUALI.
Let him pass.
Varun parts the crowd and mounts a horse.
I will send for your answer by dusk.
Varun gallops away, commotion in the crowd.
We must fortify this camp at once. I trust nothing.
PUALI and Philae signal to the BURA and animals to get to work.
It may very well be more than just a messenger by dusk.
I must take leave to the forest edge. I will commune with the Masa'ala and the Mara. We will need more eyes to see what truth, if any, in these threats.
Djalu swiftly departs on the back of a Shayarut. Exterior, the edge of a forest. Day. Djalu uses the bottom edge of his staff to part the grass and move logs until he finds mushrooms with the star-like pattern on its top. Mushrooms ground on a stone, herbs added. Djalu sits cross-legged to consume. An audible exhale as he lays back into dream. Montage. Djalu dream sequence. Lack. Fire and brimstone. Blood falls from clouds. A single drop falls through a fissure in the earth. A Minjieri boy. Interior. Mines of Morindu. Young ALAVARD, 10, petulant and chubby, waddles swiftly in the midst of a marching unit and just behind the hip of his father, shown only from his torso down.
Show it to me. ALAVARD, come.
Young ALAVARD peers around his father as Miner's Hackett black mycelium growth wrapped around a chest made of roots. A keyhole the shape of a wishbone sits at its centre. ALAVARD's eyes grow hungry. Mycelium growth slithers and expands from the keyhole. Mycelium growth grows from young ALAVARD's pupil to take over his eyes. Black. Screams. End of montage. Exterior. New Minjieri camp. Post-retreat. Day. Saris's former command is still setting up camp as riders approach. PROAKAS, 40, male commander in full metal armour minus a helmet, rides unapologetically into the crowd of soldiers.
PROAKAS, have you come to bring us home?
We go home when those savages are dead. Why have you retreated?
I lost my command to the beasts. Saras aided in my rescue and has sought treaty. She has returned to Morindu.
Concerning murmurings reached the ears of our king. Treachery. Saras has been given a position of much importance in the Great Hall. I'll take command of her unit until the job is done.
Exterior. Former Minjieri camp. Day. OGGs dig trenches as the Bulaka push debris with their heads, with the help of BURA and Muagis, who bind together segments with rope. The Diadna patrol the perimeter, head swivelling.
Leave nothing exposed.
Thena sits with a group of OGGs speaking their tongue, drawing lines in the dirt to show trench and tunnel warfare strategy. PUALI rounds a canvas sail to find Philae removing her breastplate and revealing blood.
What happened?
Oh, stop it. Easily saved by the plate.
And if just a finger to the right? I hate to admit, but that smug prick in our Garama might well be right. I'm putting you all at risk.
Djalu screams, alerting all in camp. Interior. Great Hall of Morindu. Day. The gongs of the Great Hall reverberate through the veins of the underground kingdom. Intercut between former Minjieri camp and Great Hall of Morindu. Camp. PUALI calls to ready a small party to aid Djalu, but before they can depart he returns on foot. Troubled and murmuring, he walks through the troops. Hall. Thousands of miners and lower classes, Druj, are ushered, some by force, into the Great Hall, squinting at the bright lights that shine out from the stage. Camp. Djalu moves towards the troop centre.
A vision.
ALAVARD steps up to an altar. Djalu grows zealous.
It is hopeless. There is only death here. I have seen it.
Philae grabs Djalu's hand as he moves to stand upon a boulder. He turns. Hall. The lights of the Great Hall are turned upwards, the feet of the statue of the slain Saras. Above her is ALAVARD at his altar, flanked by rows of Pavo, whose eyes survey the haunted faces of the Druj. Camp.
Let us speak of your visions, friend.
Djalu pulls his hand away and mounts the boulder.
Djalu!
Hall.
The weak tremble at the feet of the Gyeri kin.
Camp.
The war ends today by treatise. as peaceful as it can be made.
Hall.
I have been given word of surrender.
Camp.
For their fires will be quashed, their borders rescinded, and we will be endowed with the very tools they have used to harm us. With these, perhaps, we are better served to fight the dark that is the enemy of all.
Hall.
My loyal Parvo can finally rest and heal the scars of war.
Varun emerges from behind ALAVARD like a presidential running partner. A Graya ruck is latched to his shoulder. Camp.
We fight as allies, yes, but admittedly, when in the balance, it is each other we kill. Let us do it the way it has always been done. Let us give our old.
The Animalia and Bura look confusedly among themselves. Hall.
The enemy pledged sacrifice enough to bring the very sustenance some of you doubted. Believing weak hands would replace your blood with meat, but it is your king who feeds your families.
Camp.
Instead of to the forest to die at the hands of each other, in part, we will give to them as fair as any other predator might have it.
Hall.
Outside that sacrifice, our enemy will be allowed to live in the lands between Porth and Morindu, outside the borders of both, and in their life lies their servitude.
Camp.
I am afraid there is one more great sacrifice that, if negotiable, these words never uttered. The strongest of you must end your lines. Tomorrow, with the rise of the sun, castration for those who shed blood on the battlefield.
Djali points towards the eastern range. The Dar War army marches through the pass. Animals recoil in panic. Hall.
And as a symbol of the long overdue respect of the Darwar, those beasts most fierce, their lineage dulled into slavery.
Camp.
If you were prepared to die out here, then your future children would ne'er be born. Such a concession, though unthinkable, would spare those children still living. No less honourable than to death by a blade to save them.
PUALI, watching from the crowd, growing in angst, grabs Philae as they walk backwards toward their Bura.
This is not the treaty I overheard.
The Darwar marched from the east and the MINJIERRI the south. It was deceit she brought after all, and we the fools. Gather our Bura. We leave under the cover of night, alone.
The Bura leave in secret with nightfall. Many OGG follow. Djali watches from a distance. Exterior, battlefield, night. Bura and OGG moving at a strong pace across the fields of the days previous. Exterior, GIERMO-ULAK, Forest of Lost Souls, day. The three are visibly tired but moving with militant efficiency. Nels is now strapped to the front of AGGY. As the sun sets, we see animals are passing them, giving a sense that they are moving against the current. Some are dragging debris as they retreat into burrows and cover up the openings. Ominous music builds. A shriek in the distance. Focus is narrowed ahead. Silence but for their heavy breath. In the distance, but coming fast, a wall of black races towards them. A high-pitched chorus grows as it nears. They drop to one knee. AGGY covers Nels as they all bow their heads. SIMSI muttering inaudibly in prayer. Black. Silence. Chorus at full volume as a swarm of black birds flood past the three in high-pitched panic. The flow and sounds slow. AGGY takes a moment before the short-lived solace is broken. Turning, he sees SIMSI standing, death stare, pulling out his club as he wraps it in cloth.
It's me, SIMSI. We're okay.
A distorted growl can be heard from behind AGGY. Body hair stands at attention. From the darkness of a cave, a paw emerges. SIMSI lights the club. Another paw emerges. AGGY places Nels on the ground and pulls out a blade before turning to face the sound. An OGG emerges, mouth foaming, its eyes black. It charges, a frenetic fight, vision blurred by the whipping of flames in the dying light. Nels barks while SIMSI and AGGY surround it. The sound of blade into flesh, and again, and many more times. Black, heavy breath. SIMSI holds the flame to the dead OGG, its eyes replaced with a mycelial growth.
What happened to it?
Silibura, Disla or Chichuri, make slaves of living. Many more will come. We must run. Find Motua.
SIMSI and AGGY charge again, both with flames in one hand and carrying the Tua in the other. The light of their flame grows weak and the scratching grows louder. AGGY can hear distorted voices. From the trees, possessed marsupial lions growl and surround the pair. They fight them off as Nels is injured, trying to help. They manage to kill the beast, but more come from the shadows, and with them a carpet of black fungal-like growth edges closer. Its rings closing in as more beasts swing from trees. Bursting from under the earth and within the tree, the Mara emerge. Their colours many, but some shining translucent in the night. They form their own ring around the three. With each moment the ring grows tighter until an OGG breaks the line. SIMSI is set upon and knocked backwards. The OGG rears up and over him as SIMSI thrusts his blade into its belly before disappearing under its collapsing mass. A possessed Moaggy swings from a tree, striking AGGY beside the head, leaving him barely conscious and vision blurred. He sees a cloaked figure emerge and walk towards him. The Mara now fall back and start to form a cocoon around the three as the figure approaches. The Mara and the mycelium begin to stand AGGY's tour upright as the cocoon grows larger. Just as it is about to close, the figure grabs hold of the stone. A flash of white, and AGGY lets out a guttural scream. Exterior, Duara, edge of the forest, day. Early morning, low light. The sound of AGGY's scream. The hermit BU-RA clasps his tour club at the edge of Duara, a fiery stare into the forest. At his shoulder Red appears, his hammer axe in hand, flanked again by Adrian, wielding her tour staff. They charge into the forest. Exterior, edge of the BU-RA lands, night. As they approach the edge of the BU-RA lands, PUALI leaves Philae and moves to the front of the march. The silence of the night is broken by a pained growl. Philae's OGG has taken a spear to the side as MINJIERRI brigades swarm from each flank, splitting their formation. The MINJIERRI are joined by a small number of Darwar on Braka, who charge the BU-RA's OGGs. GOIAN and his OGG are knocked sideways, lodging him underneath. A Darwar stands atop the fallen OGG and thrusts a spear into his chest. PUALI spies Philae 100 metres from his position and begins hacking his way toward her in a bloody rage. In the frenzy of battle, the possessed creatures of the Ochachiri begin to swarm. They are indiscriminate in their killing. All are enemy. All on the battlefield fight multiple foe. The SVAL BU-RA slay MINJIERRI, the Darwar with one hacked-up arm hanging from his side before becoming overrun. PUALI, taking wounds, moves closer to his love, as she can be seen taking out countless enemy. A MINJIERRI soldier has caught what draws Paulus's attention and starts a direct line towards Philae. Philae, still swatting away now countless enemy, is turned away from the oncoming foe.
Philae!
She turns just as an enemy slashes her belly, PUALI with a guttural scream.
No!
A possessed creature grabs the enemy soldier and drags him into the shadows. Philae's intestines fall out and onto the ground. PUALI, distraught, fights his way even closer. Philae takes her to a tree and with a scream drives it into the earth. It grows tall above her and the Ochachiri shriek backward. She stands using her own intestines to bind her to her tour. A MINJIERRI charges at her and she throws a dagger between their eyes. PUALI finally makes it to her side.
Phil!
Me tingem me muri standim.
Ay, show me fail you.
Oi can fail me. Ash umi royam uyu. Papa go now.
Philae gestures towards the now enclosing MINJIERRI forces.
Never.
Philae looks him in the eye and with an even more serious tone.
Papa go now. Yumahan mangi umi.
The Mara begin pulling him into the earth as the MINJIERRI lunge forth. PUALI fights against the forces pulling him under.
Ay!
Mahan agi umi.
PUALI rages against the forces that pull him away.
Papa go now.
PUALI is taken under the dirt as if drowning. Black. Montage, forest locations. A series of shots show the passage of time and the dragging of PUALI through the earth's topsoil layer. From night to dawn to night again. Exterior. Mother Tua tree, Duara, night. PUALI's body lies lifeless at the base of the Mother Tua. Silence. A crowd gathers and drags him off. We see his face, a slash across one eye, emotionless. Interior hut, day. PUALI stares down at a sleeping AGGY. His eyes now healed over, and we see the familiar face of the old hermit BU-RA. Exterior forest, day. Old hermit BU-RA, PUALI in the present, rages through the forest in search of his son. Exterior, GIERMO-ULAK, forest of lost souls, day. Countless carcasses strewn across the forest floor, dappled light and the sounds of morning and new life. The cocoon unravels and the Mara disperse. The Tua falls from its upright position with a thud by Aggy's head, waking him as he thrusts upright in panicked breath. He hurriedly scans his perimeter, slowly calming before looking down to see SIMSI underneath the now dead OGG. Nels pushes at it helplessly, trying to get SIMSI underneath. Aggy quickly to its side, puts his back against the beast, and along with Nels, they use every bit of strength they have to roll it over. They hover over SIMSI, his face, that of a dead BURA, face drooped and tongue falling out of his mouth. Then, in an instant, his eyes fly open and his mouth moves to a big smile as he laughs.
Ha! Me fooling you. You thinking me muri.
SIMSI grabs Nels and gives him a cuddle, and Aggy puts an arm around him. Exterior forest, day. Old hermit BURA, PUALI, Red, and Adrian race through the forest, quickly referencing the marking left by Aggy along the way. Exterior ridge above GOIAN, day. PUALI, Red, and Adrian are staring down at the side of the landslide, fearing the worst when they hear the horn of war and immediately race toward. Exterior, Duara, day. SIMSI and Aggy with Nels strapped to his chest labour up a mountainside, exhausted yet at peace. An igniting scent of campfire cooking hits their nose.
Momo.
Nels sniffs with excitement and all find an extra gear. Across the mountainside, Red and Adrian call the waylay Aggy. His doer dragging behind him, he charges, then slips and rises before slipping again. Exhausted, he sits, slumps, still.
Aggy!
Aggy!
Over a rise, PUALI emerges, first running fiercely and flanked by Red and Adrian. A roar from PUALI as they run toward the motionless Aggy.
My boy.
PUALI slides on his knees from a height and scrambles in front of Aggy, holding his shoulders as Aggy's head hangs.
My Aggy.
Aggy struggles to lift the weight of his head, and as if waking from slumber, he breaks open squinted eyes.
Papa?
Aggy, suddenly awake.
Papa?
Aggy begins to sob. PUALI moves to hug Aggy, but stops himself as his tics return. Aggy lunges and squeezes him as a mountain of tension releases from PUALI's body and a single tear down his cheek.
It's not your fault, Papa. I saw it. I saw my mama. It's not your fault, Papa. You don't have to hide. We don't have to be alone, Papa.
PUALI sits behind a delirious Aggy, tears now rolling down his cheeks. Red and Adrian kneel down to rub his legs and arms as Nels pokes his head out.
Oh, and who is your friend, Aggy? Your saviour, I suppose.
This is Nels. Mama Mori. Strong like my mama.
Aggy, in a moment of lucidity, becomes frantic. He looks around the mountainside.
Where's SIMSI? SIMSI!
Who is SIMSI?
SIMSI!
Who is your friend, Aggy? Another OGG?
Garun. SIMSI is Garun. I found him in the night, and together we fought the dark.
The rescue party look at each other with skepticism.
There's no one else here, Aggy.
Aggy stares blankly across the mountain.
Let us get you home, Aggy.
The rescue party lift him to his feet. Red stands over Aggy's Tua. Aggy gives him an approving nod and lifts it on his shoulder as the others take an arm and lift him to his feet. As they walk, PUALI addresses Red.
Your father was the finest BU-RAA-C I have ever seen. Every bit as brave as any BU-RAA-U, but a craftsman of endless talent.
Red grips his Tua, now with pride. A short walk over a rise, they enter Duara. All are there to meet them. Some welcome, and others just stare and whisper about the Tua and the long unfamiliar presence of PUALI as he looks around at prying eyes. The parade of BURA usher the group into a ceremonial circle where the Council of Chiefs stand in wait. PUALI unhooks Aggy's arms and looks to slip away. An onlooker calls from the crowd.
Yes, back to your hole, murderer.
As PUALI slinks away, a hand on his chest.
No. Aggy needs his papa. Think of Phile. He needs guidance.
Ogra addressing the crowd.
This is your MINJIERRI. He's had enough pain now.
PUALI searches himself before addressing the BURA.
I have not been your MINJIERRI for many years, nor do I desire to be. Many others more worthy now take my place. But only I can be a father to this boy, and I've neglected that role for far too long.
One by one, the Duara chiefs nod their approval. Behind the crowd walks a figure.
Oh, look him this la!
The crowd turns to see SIMSI has pulled out his Tua growing in the centre of Duara. They reel back, shocked, as Simsi picks his nose, completely oblivious, then rubs the snot into the hair above his knee, never breaking his gaze with his tuamuri, the tua of the hunter class.
This la big platua.
AGGY looks at Simsi with a big smile. Smiles all round. Simsi delivers a Forrest Gump-style wave. Exterior, outside of AGGY's hut, night. The fire crackles as AGGY, PUALI and Olgra pick the last bits of meat from bones. Simsi lies asleep in a light snore, snuggling his tua and surrounded by countless bones. AGGY stares in contemplation.
Papa, I'm not strong enough to wield this tua. I give it to you.
PUALI takes hold of the tua and heaves it up in a two-handed carry in front of him. He stares at it with admiration.
A tua is not to give. In any case, it is as much a burden as it is a gift. They don't tell you that in their speeches, but you've seen enough now to know it is true.
PUALI hands the tua back.
As there is only little we can do to lighten its weight, we must build you big enough to manage it alone.
I am no warrior.
Turning to Olgra.
I do hear them, Olgra, the Mara. I cannot be both BU-RAA and BU-RAA-EH.
Olgra sips from his cup, staring into the fire.
Suppose you are confronted by a beast as wide as Igwe, with teeth like blades. Are you without fear because of it you do not know? All things are unknown until they are not. The BU-RAA may seem set in stone, but even the mountain changes shape with the rain given enough time, or so very suddenly given the right push. No one but you can decide who you will become, AGGY.
Olgra turns his focus to PUALI.
Nor you, my son.
PUALI somber.
I have seen signs of great disturbance over these years. The dark, taking hold of the forest, watching me as I watch it. The BU-RAA grow weak in numbers and temperament. So many of our best I took with me to die.
Olgra jolts him with his tua, becoming emotional.
And weakened many more by your absence since. All must become more than they are, for the Ochituri does not care whether you are Bura Muri or Bura-U, BU-RAA-NAI or Little Mangi. It will come for you all the same. There is no place here for doubt and self-pity. Become the BU-RA our women lost expected you to be.
PUALI and AGGY nod with some reluctance before PUALI is struck with a memory.
The night I lost your mother, it felt like she called for the Mara to take me, but she was BU-RAA.
AGGY sits back as the fire fills his pupils.
It is time we both take our place here, son.
Montage of AGGY in training. PUALI and AGGY training Bungari outside their huts. AGGY in the BU-RAA-NAI circle, struggling to keep from opening his eyes to look around. AGGY gaining a yellow Bungari grading. AGGY carving his tua under the eye of the Bura Sea, large flakes of outer strangler are planed off using bone knives. A class of Bura follow a master through the forest. He launches his tua spear like a javelin, but its vines stay bonded to his forearm. Training Bungari. AGGY reaches out his hand to pull a fallen Adrigal up in the Bungari training grounds. They exchange a flirtatious smile while he raises his hands for the next challenger. AGGY, Red, Adrigal and SIMSI are following the tutelage of PUALI in wielding the tua. AGGY able to heave it using both hands. AGGY carves the tua now more skillfully, its gnarled shell becoming smooth. AGGY sits in the Uranu circle, eyes remain closed. Red, Adrigal and AGGY crawl through leaf litter with SIMSI as lead, stalking the animals of the forest. AGGY gaining green Bungari grading and being celebrated by his peers. SIMSI chasing the Duara children around playfully and climbing trees with effortless ease. AGGY bests Red in Bungari as Red holds up a single finger to indicate it's the first time as AGGY goads him with a little dance, joined by Adrigal and SIMSI and then Red himself. AGGY sits alone in meditation in the forest. AGGY, PUALI, Red, SIMSI and Adrigal climb tall trees and look over the lands at the fires burning in the distance, then at each other. AGGY and PUALI spar and AGGY bests him for the first time. PUALI raises his eyebrows with amusement and surprise. End of montage. Exterior, outside of AGGY's hut, day. PUALI sits by the fire, his back to AGGY with a pleased look on his face.
It is a shame, my son. A great fighter you are, but you cannot become Mangi Fus, wielding a tua like a log. A log will not defeat the creatures of the night.
AGGY stares at his tour rested against a tree. He stands up from his sitting rock. PUALI smiles, sensing his movements. AGGY reaches his hand to his tour. It wraps around his forearm and swings it like a mace to rest behind his shoulder. AGGY walks towards PUALI, unflinching as it smashes into the earth next to him. The outer shell of the stone has cracked, revealing a tour head, reminiscent of the star of the Masa'ala. Interior, the fall, unknown. ALAVARD holds a MINJIERRI prisoner by his neck over a cliff face overlooking an endless chasm. Watching on are MINJIERRI of Morondou from outcrops and entryways.
For crimes of blasphemy against the GIERMO kin, how do I find thee?
Mercy, mercy,
Pardon?
mercy.
No. Death. Obviously. And this is why you are here. You're a fool.
ALAVARD drops the prisoner into the abyss. Walking back away from the edge, he calls out,
Banished.
Infinitum.
Black. The thud of a body. Silence. Something feasting. Credits resume.